This footage hides the most disturbing secret. It's 1981 and a group of high school cheerleaders are rallying for their football team, unaware that there is someone watching them carefully, selecting his next target.
It just wasn't possible that anything bad could ever touch our world.
While River Oaks may be the home of champions, it's also the home of a rumor that is getting bigger each time it's told.
We had no idea that there was this monster out there.
One victim after another can all be traced back to a single photo.
He's just picking his victims by who might be next in that picture.
While the surge of handgun sales is on the rise, nervous residents are left with no choice but to lock their doors and stay inside.
Some say 7, some 8, some 9, and police are trying to hide it.
We're not approaching this logically, folks. We're approaching
Police are actively hiding information from the public, leaving everyone in the dark. But 3 cheerleaders have had enough and have decided to take matters into their own hands. But the more they search, the more they realize that the murderer is closer than they have ever imagined. Now it's up to them to save their friends, face the killer, and take him down. This would end up being one of the most controversial cases in Texas history. And even 3 decades later, the fight against the cheerleader killer of River Oaks is still not over. It's Friday night in River Oaks, and the cheerleaders are getting ready for a big game at the neighboring high school of Boswell in Fort Worth. While Retha Stratton, Lisa Tickner, and the rest of the squad were on their way there, 16-year-old Susan Brown was waiting for her friend Roxy, another cheerleader, to come and pick her up.
I was a junior in the fall of 1980, and I was a cheerleader with Retha Stratton. I didn't have my driver's license at the time, so I needed a ride. My parents went out to some dinner with some friends. My friend Roxy was supposed to come and pick me up.
Roxy was running late. As Susan eagerly waited at the door with her uniform on, the wall-mounted telephone in her kitchen rang. She could hear that someone was at the other end of the line, and after saying hello multiple times, a male voice asked if her parents were there. As soon as she said no, the line immediately cut, but the phone rang again seconds later. Suspecting another call from the strange man, Susan was relieved to hear it was her sister at the other end. However, after talking with her for a few minutes, she heard the front door of her house creaking open. With a mere 7,000 inhabitants and barely any crime, nobody ever locked their doors in River Oaks. She told her to wait for a bit, pulled down the phone near the receiver, and walked toward the entryway. What she saw shocked the teenager to her core. A tall, shirtless man in a red mask and unzipped jeans stood in the middle of the room. Susan immediately turned around and ran. When the man caught up with her, he ordered her to stop crying and forced himself onto her. Susan silently complied until the man heard faint noises coming from the telephone receiver. Susan's sister was still at the other end. Realizing they weren't alone, he shoved Susan aside and ran away. The teenager stood up as fast as she could to try to catch a glimpse of her attacker, but all she could see in the darkness outside was his vehicle's headlights, far in the distance.
The police showed up shortly after that. They didn't take me to the hospital. They didn't do the rape kit. They didn't do all the things that you should do. And to this day, it's very frustrating for me. You know, that was my Friday night. And I would change my life forever.
2 days later, on Monday, Susan returned to school as if nothing had happened, totally oblivious to the fact that her entire squad felt like she had let them down by foregoing last Friday's game.
We really were kind of upset still at Susan, and we were kind of railing on, well, she should have found a ride, and I don't understand why she couldn't get here. Finally, our cheerleading sponsor kind of had to say, look, something bad has happened to her and you need to knock it off. Like, don't ask her about it either.
Following their sponsor's request, Lisa and the girls kept their distance. Yet, it was the ensuing silence that hurt Susan the most.
You know, rape was still like, oh, what did you do to instigate that? I didn't want anyone knowing. I know this sounds terrible. I felt very shameful.
She wanted to keep it quiet. So as far as how we handled it, we were more concerned on where we were going to have our prom that year.
Even the police quickly gave up on the case. With no suspects and no evidence, they handed the responsibility of finding her attacker back to Susan. They explained that since sexual violence was often perpetrated by someone the victim knew, she should keep an eye open and come back to them if she noticed anyone acting strangely around her.
When I went back to cheering, I thought, well, maybe it's someone's watching me in the stands. I was doing my cheerleading, but in my brains, I was looking at everyone in the stands. And then the other rape started.
Even though none of the other cheerleaders truly knew what had happened to Susan, rumors started to spread when a 35-year-old junior coach and a 19-year-old former cheerleader were both attacked in similar circumstances later that year. Both received strange phone calls minutes before the break-ins, and both were assaulted by a tall man wearing a red mask.
At least 3 young River Oaks women have been attacked and raped in recent months. This woman is a mother, a Pee Wee League cheerleader advisor, and the victim of sexual assault. In October, she was attacked in her home in River Oaks.
He has taken with me part of my life he can't replace. He can't give it back. He's got it and he'll keep it, because I can't regain what he took from me.
This woman has literally locked herself in. She is afraid to let her children walk to school. Yet she doesn't feel secure and fears she never will again.
With the last 2 attacks being only a month apart, the community should have been on edge. However, the police chose not to publicize the case. While life carried on as if nothing had happened, the senior cheerleaders, like Retha and Lisa, graduated from high school and moved on with their lives. On December 7th, 1981, after a long shift at work, Lisa arrived home late, tired, and completely unaware of the danger she was in.
It's just very much that teenage mentality that doesn't affect my world. That can happen to me.
Before going to bed, she checked on her mother, who was suffering from a neurodegenerative disease and was bedridden in the living room, unable to move or speak. Lisa wished her goodnight, headed to her room, and quickly fell asleep. However, her rest was cut short when a tall man wearing a red mask opened her closed door, proceeded to pull back her sheets, and grabbed the 18-year-old by the throat. At that moment, although she was in extreme danger, Lisa had only one thing on her mind.
Oh my God, where's my mother? I don't know if he's killed my mother, and in a whispery voice said, I won't hurt her if you do what I tell you to do.
The masked man then raped Lisa, just meters away from her ailing mother. When he was done, he pushed her aside and headed out. The teenager quickly rolled over to follow him, and, from the hallway, watched in shock as he carelessly removed his mask right in front of her mom.
The fact that whoever had done that to me walked right past my mother with no fear that she was going to be able to communicate who it was or follow him or challenge him. I asked my mom, are you okay? And she asked, who is that? And at that moment, I knew I couldn't tell her what had happened. And so I just said, it was just a friend. It's okay.
After making sure she was around that time, Retha moved in with her best friend since childhood, Amy Moody.
We were cautious. We had started locking our door at night. We're kind of on guard a little bit.
Retha would go out of my parents' house and do laundry there. That week, she had gone by the house, and as she was leaving, my dad told her, Retha, be careful because that guy that, attacked your friends is still out there. There's bad people out there. And she says, Daddy, he'll have to kill me first. He'll never rape me. He'll have to kill me first.
Thursday, January 21st, 1982. Amy got home from work in the evening and pulled into the driveway beside Aretha's car, but something was wrong. The front door of their apartment was wide open. Unsure of what to make of it, she hesitated at the entrance, unable to see a thing in the dark apartment.
I reached inside the door and turned a light on, and there was blood everywhere, all over the carpet, all over the walls, everywhere that you could see.
Amy ran outside to ask her sister, who lived next door, for help. She grabbed a baseball bat and they returned to the apartment together. While tiptoeing around the living room to avoid stepping in the blood, Amy noticed something, a discernible trail past the doorway.
The blood trail kind of led to Aretha's room. So we walked that direction, and it's almost like he had tried to shove her in the closet, but the door didn't catch. Her wrists were slit. The knife was still stuck in her chest. I remember thinking, she can't be dead. I just have to get her help.
Amy immediately called the police and Aretha's family. Before long, the entire premise was blocked off with police tape as neighbors and family members gathered on the sidewalk. But before heading out, Aretha's father had another person to deliver the devastating news to.
I didn't break down. I didn't start crying. Immediately, I wanted answers. Like, who did this? Is this the same person that raped the girls?
The body of 18-year-old Aretha Stratton was found Thursday. The former cheerleader had been stabbed 38 times. The woman grew up in River Oaks, lived just inside the Fort Worth city line near her hometown.
She was pretty feisty. She didn't mind voicing her opinion or telling you what she thought, how she felt. That's probably largely what led to what happened. I think she fought. Aretha was a fighter.
Dennis Timmons, the detective who took over the case after Aretha's murder, was an outsider from Fort Worth. Unfamiliar with the masked man case that had burdened the town for the last year, he instead focused on the crime scene itself.
There was too much damage done to the body. Whoever killed Aretha went overboard. And the expression on her face, it was a look as if, avenge me, I wasn't supposed to die this way. Help me.
At the time, DNA profiling was still years away, leaving the detective with little more than the scene, the body, and potential witnesses. Amy was barely able to speak after what she had experienced, so Timmons dismissed her and began interviewing the other people present at the scene instead. It wasn't long before the blame fell on the usual suspect, Aretha's boyfriend, Dale Kinson.
We've all watched all the crime shows. First person you look at is the boyfriend or the husband.
But with Dale Kinson being there, I definitely listed him as a possible suspect. He lived at home with his mom and dad. The only time that he was away from his mother and daddy was the time that he went to the cleaners, which was the time that the offense occurred, so that ruled him out.
After being let go, Dale was joined by Rona, Aretha's sister. Together, they too started to question people in the neighborhood. Multiple witnesses saw a red truck parked in front of Aretha and Amy's apartment around 5 p.m. Dale knew only one person who both fit the description of the attacker given by the cheerleaders and drove a red truck, the football team defensive back, Wesley Miller. Strangely enough, it wasn't the first time Aretha's big sister heard that name.
A couple of weeks before Aretha's killed, she was telling me about all the rapes. And I asked Aretha, what's the deal? Who's doing this? And she says, well, the only thing I've heard was that he looked like Wesley Miller. And I'm like, who's Wesley Miller?
First time I'd ever heard his name. I didn't know the veracity of that, so I had to check that out. I knew I didn't have much time because we have a murder on the loose.
Wesley went to school with Aretha and I. He was handsome. He was friendly. I never would have looked at him and said, you did that to me.
Timmons' investigation took a sharp turn after he zeroed in on Wesley. The day after the murder, he received a call from Roxy, the young man's girlfriend. It was her birthday the night before, and when Wesley arrived at her place, his jeans were soaked in blood, claiming it was from a football practice accident. Though Roxy was reluctant to believe Wesley could be involved, she was determined to see justice for her sister, who had been raped by the masked man months earlier. Without hesitation, she handed the bloody jeans over to Timmons.
So now we know when Aretha got home from work. We know when Amy found her. We know when Wesley showed up at Roxy's house 3 minutes down the road with bloody blue jeans. It all fit together like a puzzle.
Today, 19-year-old Wesley Miller was charged with the Stratton murder. Miller was chosen best all-around senior at his high school last year, the same school where Aretha Stratton cheered.
Then I realized Wesley met the description of my rapist. He knew I was going to be home that night because Roxy was supposed to pick me up. At that point, it all fit for me. Everything started to piece together that this was cheerleader, cheerleader, cheerleader. You know, you start looking at the photo and you go, oh, wait, Susan's here and Lisa's there. And then there was Roxy. Of course, Roxy's sister was raped.
Here's his lineup, and it was all the cheerleaders on the left side.
Wesley denied having anything to do with the rapes, but the evidence spoke for itself. Not only did the blood found at the scene and on his jeans match, his fingerprints were the same as the ones collected where one of the rapes occurred. The masked man the town had started calling the cheerleader slayer had finally been identified. However, nobody could have expected that the upcoming battle to stop him would last well over 2 decades. On October 21st, 1982, the jury, unaware of all the rapes he had committed, still found Wesley Miller guilty, but only sentenced him to 25 years.
Prosecutors say a look of anguish covered the jurors' faces when they learned of Miller's past. He has been charged in other cases with 2 counts of rape, and he could be walking the streets on parole in 8 years.
For all of us that had been victims of him, it was almost a slap in the face. You want justice to prevail, and 25 years was not justice for any of us.
So then I thought, what happened to me, that'll add more to it. You know, that's where we'll get him, because they're going to get him on all these other rapes.
Lisa and the others fought to ensure Wesley was punished, yet only one rape charge resulted in a conviction. Even worse, his rape sentence would be served concurrently with the murder sentence, meaning it wouldn't add any time to his already existing prison term.
In a shocking turn of events, Wesley Wayne Miller, convicted of the brutal murder of Aretha Stratton, is already up for parole just 2 years after his trial.
I don't want to look the person in the face that's Wesley's next victim and say, I didn't do everything that I possibly could.
Despite their constant efforts to prevent his release, Wesley was granted parole after serving less than a third of his sentence. Though the survivors managed to ban him from several counties, he quickly reoffended after his release in Wichita Falls.
Breaking news tonight, a Wichita Falls woman is recovering after a terrifying encounter with a convicted murderer. Authorities say Laura Bernard was attacked outside her home but managed to escape and lock herself inside. Her husband pursued the suspect as he tried to flee.
I told Laura to go get the keys to the car, and so I run and jump in the car, and we take off down the street.
I said, I can't look at him. I don't want to look at him. I'm so scared. And he said, you just get the license plate.
From then on, Wesley cycled in and out of prison, either by reoffending or refusing sex offender rehabilitation. As his 25-year sentence neared its end in 2006, the survivors' fight became a race against the clock. Lisa, Susan, and Rona wanted the state to recognize Wesley as a sexually violent predator. If they succeeded, he would be put under mandatory supervision for the rest of his life, effectively preventing him from harming another woman ever again. On October 23, 2006, it was finally time for the former cheerleaders to meet their attacker in court. After Aretha was taken from them, Lisa, Susan, and Rona vowed to do everything in their power to ensure her killer stayed behind bars. They didn't only want the world to know the true face of Wesley, but also pay tribute to Aretha's passing.
I hope Aretha knows that the grave wasn't the end of her story, and we will keep her story alive. And we will make sure Wesley Miller doesn't hurt other people.
Between their many legal battles, Lisa became the proud mom of 3 children. Rona sat on the governing board of the Texas Civil Commitment Office, and Susan became a forensic genealogist, solving multiple cold cases. During the final phase of the hearing, the 3 friends sat next to each other as the jury read out Wesley's judgment.
You find beyond a reasonable doubt that Wesley Miller suffered from a behavioral abnormality that makes him likely to engage in a predatory act of sexual violence. Answer, yes.
Through sheer determination, the 3 friends forced the system into action, ensuring Wesley remained under civil commitment for life, a hard-fought victory that proved justice can prevail, even against impossible odds.
This moment, anything like you imagined?
It's a relief. It's such validation. I mean, it says he really was there to sexually assault her and murder her. And she didn't ask for that. And I was raped, and I did know it was him. And now he has to answer for that. This is as good as it gets.